And we're creating a curated job portal just for Trade Collective. And in that job portal, we're showing that there are 1,300 jobs in the Evanston plus 10-mile radius that are just trade specific, and they don't require a 4-year degree, and they all pay over $75,000 a year on up.
I can't tell you how many times I've been asked at board meetings when we do the annual report, annual achievement report, right? We do all the grad data, do the college data, what about the other kids, Pete?
Yeah.
Where are they? And I say, every time I say the same thing. I was like, well, we don't know.
Yeah.
You know, we don't know. And then they say, well, can you create a system? I was like, I can't create a system that does that. But y'all did. In high school, 8 out of 10 of the certificates that students earn in the work-based learning field, those certificates are worthless.
Yes.
All right, Petey, here we are.
Here we go.
Here we go.
All right.
Another fired up podcast.
Here it is.
Here we go. So, you know, I usually like to ask you about the high school.
Yeah,
what's going on?
No.
So you guys got hit with some sort of, I don't mean to say this, but you got hit with something this week. What happened?
So yeah, we did. We got hit with a cyber attack.
Wow.
Yeah.
Everything okay?
I mean, we're getting there.
Yeah.
We're getting there, but it's crazy, right? You forget how dependent you are on tech. And then when you get a cyber attack, you realize, wow, that's a lot. So we brought kids back for summer school Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We had to take 2 days off to get everything straightened out, but the kids are back. We're running school, and hopefully by the time this airs, everything is great.
I think it's good for the community to hear the real stuff that goes on. And so, you know, today you brought some of your all the department chairs here. Tell me about that.
I brought the chairs here first of all, I called over to the Trade Collective. I said, hey guys, having a little trouble with the internet over at the high school, and I have a retreat scheduled. Can I use the space? Patrick and Tris were like, absolutely, come on over.
That's what it's here for.
So we did a retreat today, and I brought my team. We had great discussions around classroom observation data that we had collected over the year. With very specific outcomes. We talked about professional learning communities. We had really great conversations. And at the end, when I finished up at around 1:30, the chairs were like, you know, this was awesome. And I was like, yeah, what about it was awesome? And they were like, our discussion was so great. But I think what really made it happen was getting out of the building. This felt like a workshop. This felt like a real retreat. And so thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Tris. Thank you, Trade Collective.
I'll just remind you and anybody, this space is here for you and for the students and for our community to use to, whether it's directly a trade, but it's really for the high school because you can do it a little differently here than we don't have to comply with all the rules that a high school might have to comply with. It's not like we're being irresponsible. It's just saying that you can actually just think a little differently. And
that's what, you know, that happened today too. I mean, we actually had our history department chair talking about work-based, like what could post-high school planning look like in a history class? Like, what could we talk about? We had a whole conversation around skills that really apply to the post-high school reality, and just asking the question every day, hey, what does this have to do with life after school?
So what?
Right? So, yeah, I mean, and that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't have brought the team here and you didn't tell them what the space was about.
Well,
so it kind of generated
good,
that kind
no
of energy.
internet. It was actually good to not have internet for a day.
Well, we have some pretty cool guests here today, Pete.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. Rachel Kohler, Nichole Pinkard. Nicole's kind of a hot shot here in our town. Pretty excited to have her. When I met you, I don't know how long Peter Braithwaite introduced us. I think our first conversation was 4 hours long. And yeah.
That'll be like today's podcast.
We went for a walk. For those who know Nichole, she's just got a wicked mind and thank you for serving on our school board. First of all, thank you for taking that challenge. I don't think it's easy. You know, my mother-in-law was the mayor here in town, and I got a front row to watching what it means to be a public official. And I think you get a lot of heat. And I thank you for stepping into that with the role that you have in our community. So first of all, thank you. Why don't you just introduce yourself if you don't mind?
Nichole Pinkard. I am actually from Kansas City, Kansas. And I grew up, I'm 55, which is important to say. I grew up at a time before we had MTV, I guess, was just started. So you knew your world, you knew your reality, and you weren't comparing your reality to anyone else. But I spent a summer in Evanston when I was going to my senior year doing the LEAD program at Northwestern with 20 other, highly successful Black and brown students who we all thought we were the best things since sliced bread. Getting to know Evanston, but we got on a bus and we went to the South Side and we went to where the housing projects were. And we spent the day with kids living in a very different reality. And getting off that bus, on the way back, we were asked, Jawanza Kunjufu, who Northwestern gave us to him for a day. He said, would you be on this bus if this was your reality? And that question, and that really was a question that has stayed with me forever. I realized how lucky I was growing up in Kansas City. But my way of seeing things is through building systems and thinking about, I'm not a writer. I see things and systems and say, how do you put the pieces together? I think I've always been trying to understand how my reality in Kansas City, which allowed me, parents worked for AT&T and the power company, to be a computer scientist at Stanford without feeling like everyone put in extra resources to make it happen, right? You said Nichole Parker, I think that's the head of your history. Mm-hmm. We went to high school together.
I was just putting that together in my head.
Yeah.
I was like, wait a minute.
Right. So there's something about that, our high school, that when I moved here, Nichole and I've talked about it, Evanston reminds me of that. And we both feel a little sad that we left our city. If you go to Kansas City, McDonald's are shut down. It's a dead city, unfortunately. It's coming back hopefully a little bit. So this is that place to sort of be able to see, can I, pay it forward? And can I sort of recreate for my nieces and nephews that reality here with cool people? Yeah. So a little about me, I'm a computer scientist who likes to think about how systems work. That's who I am.
Beautiful.
I think that's an understatement, Nichole.
Okay. We're gonna get there. There's more under that hood. Yeah. Rachel. Welcome.
Yeah.
Well, what she didn't say is she is a co-founder of STEAMe.
I thought we were going to get to. Sorry about that.
Okay. And STEAMe is a technology company of which I'm the CEO, and so I'm really grateful to know Nichole and her great network here in Evanston. I will say that I was also the CEO of NowPow. Which was founded by one of our other co-founders, Dr. Stacy Lindau. Nichole is with Northwestern, Stacy's with UChicago, so we have a little rivalry there. But our NowPow days, we established and technology that was in the social care referral space, and that technology connected health systems, patients, and community organizations to manage social care referrals. And our technology helped those patients navigate their way to those community resources so they could get the vital care that they needed. At STEAMe, we're basically doing the same thing. We're connecting workforce intermediaries like Trade Collective, learners, training providers, and employers, connecting them all together and helping those learners get to and through, navigating them and supporting them on their way to and through training and to a good job. Mm-hmm. And so we like to think about, at NowPow, we put people on pathways to better health. And here at STEAMe, we're putting them on pathways to greater wealth. Mm-hmm. And I'm really excited to be on that journey with Nichole because she is one incredible systems builder. And that's the way we think. We think at scale. And she solves problems at scale. And what's so cool is that she's been doing it with technology for a very long time and applying it to her research. And so she really deeply understands how technology, when paired with that human touch, can really create huge and systemic community change.
Yeah, and I think just say that Stacy if she was here, sort of sits in between. How we got connected is all the work they were doing. But NowPow created an organization called MapScore, which really trains young people to understand their community, go out, collect data, make sense of the resources in their community, and come up with their own research questions and put it out there and connect it to those who can make those changes. So here we were looking at that, and I was like, "Ooh, we want to understand how that is. So let's talk to them." And when we started talking, said our work is so aligned. I might think about K-12 education, and this work is thinking about health. And we realized it's better to collaborate together.
We're going to get to that in just a second, but you grew up in Wisconsin.
I did grow up in Wisconsin.
And let's just get a little bit more, just for a second, because before we got on here, you were talking about there's a connection to the trade collective and sort of a passion around workforce development. Could you talk about that?
Well, actually, it's the specific work that Trade Collective's doing that is very personal to me. My family business is Kohler. We make bathtubs, toilets, sinks. Some people make jokes about that. Please don't. But my dad, Herb Kohler, spent most of his life in service to the builders and to the housing industry. So much so that he was inducted into the National Association of Home Builders Hall of Fame, which he was very proud of. And he founded the National Housing Endowment. And one of his last gestures before he passed away was to actually fund the Skilled Labor Fund, which actually funds a lot of organizations like the Trade Collective. And really he was very passionate about creating those talent pipelines that can sustain the building industry and create that economic engine across communities that he knew was so important.
Does that dovetail into STEAMe?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I feel very fortunate that I can use STEAMe actually to expand on that legacy, not just for obviously the skilled trades, which we're very passionate about here, but also for many of the other important talent pipelines that are going on across this city and elsewhere. So our technology, our workforce development technology, can apply to any talent pipeline, but I'm especially partial to the skilled trades.
Just real quick, Pete, I want to, so, Evanston and Northwestern is always there's always a little tension, correct? There can be, there often has been. I think people don't quite get what's going on at CESP and what people like you are brought to this town and you have been thinking about things like before you got on the school board. Could you just give us a little commercial about how much investment comes from Northwestern into our town without just intellectual capital and thought process, please?
Yeah, I'll mainly talk about the School of Education and Social Policy. I know that well. When I got my PhD here multiple years ago,
yes,
in a program called Learning Sciences, which is all about design, context, and context. So it's understanding problems in real world environments and working with people to figure them out. So Evanston, with CESP right here, is the place where we do that work. I know Pete, almost every educator here, all of the out of school organizations, because for me, it's just being lucky to sit with you in fellowship with you and understand your problems, to go back and say, how might we think about this together, and use the great resources of Northwestern, National Science Foundation to do something different here. What's so unique about Evanston and being a hub to do the work is the way we're structured with one high school, 15 different elementary and middle schools that feed up to there. It makes it, from a research standpoint, you can understand if your stuff works, right? There's no apples to oranges. It's like, okay, well, what happens if kids go from here to here? How do we do this together? So it's the best place to be, but it's not, we think of Northwestern, but it's really the faculty. So many of the faculty live here. We ride our bikes there. Our kids go to school here. We're coaches. And so it's just part of the fabric, which makes it just so much easier. I did a lot of work in Chicago, where Chicago is big. The problems are sexy. It's like you can solve something in Chicago, and it's like,
I'm in Chicago, and I don't know if I'd say our problems are sexy.
No, but from a researcher, they are.
It is, right?
From a researcher, standpoint. But like, this is, more places are like Evanston, right? And so really trying to solve things here. But we don't walk around with Northwestern on our shirts.
I remember when we met, you talked about how Evanston was manageable in that respect, and you kicked out like the square miles of Evanston. It's pretty impressive, and just like that, if we can do this here, because of the size and because of the single high school, and the relationships, and the research practice partnership thing is important because all the challenges are like co-constructed, right? The problems of practice. And that's a big deal because there was a time when we would just be handed stuff on the back end of a grant.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, we thought about you after the fact, but
and the money never came to you; it came to us.
Right? Yeah. But this has actually been really rich the last like 10 years. I want to say the collaboration and the really turned a corner, and it's been really positive.
And the last thing to say about that is, seeing you sitting here, right? So we're not hearing a conversation about schools.
Yeah.
We're really hearing a conversation about learning and what does it mean, the relationship between high school and the rest of your life and learning in and out of school. So this is an Evanston reality because it's not, we play very different roles in our formal jobs. But reality, we know to do what we need to do, we actually have to have these tables and we have to.
I'd like to say it was very well thought out. It was 3 days before I was about to go do a podcast. I was like, I don't want to do this alone. I got to do Pete's. Hey, Pete.
Called me at the house.
Hey, Pete, you want to do a podcast?
But you can here. You could do it that way.
You can.
My boss was like, I said, I want to do this thing. He's like, yeah, sure. Go for it. Because that's the kind of place we are, right?
And what are you getting from it? What is it doing to inform you?
What it's done is it's allowed me an entry point into workforce development, into the world that isn't necessarily college focused. I don't know about you, but I'm 55 as well. And I came up in a college for all environment as an educator. That was the mantra for a long time in CPS when I was there. It was the mantra when I went out to the suburbs. Definitely was the mantra in Evanston. But, we leave about a quarter of the kids don't go directly into college at all, right? And we really weren't doing anything to support that group. We talked about it. We said, we got about 100. We always say like the 100. It's more than 100. It's more than 100. I mean, if you're graduating about 1,000 kids, this is more than 100. But we were really quiet about it. We'd want the kids to have a plan, but we never really monitored the plan. And the sad fact is, when kids leave the high school, if they don't enroll in college, we can track that, right? Through something called the National Clearinghouse. And we can look at persistence and that kind of thing. And we did a lot of that work with District 65 and Northwestern back in the day. What does college persistence mean? Well, in Evanston, for an Evanston grad, you get an 80% chance of graduating college if you persist into your junior year. Oh my Lord. Yeah. Only in Evanston would we say that's college ready. But we did. And that was a big chunk of kids. But we were investing all of that energy. We were telling kids in third grade whether they were college ready. I mean, these were real conversations 10, 12 years ago. That's shifted, right? To really to trying to be more intentional and actually being more intentional about what post-high school opportunities are. But the challenge remains, how do you get information about the kids that leave? And that's real.
Pete, so one of the things that what we talk about is supply and demand. Let's get to the STEAMe technology and what are you trying to solve? Give us go back to the beginning of kind of like, why did you come up with it and where are we at right now? Yeah.
So I mentioned we had created this technology called NowPow, and we were connecting up stakeholders, organizations across the community to stand up these social care referrals. And the problem was there was no digital or data infrastructure to connect these organizations. So people were falling through the cracks, similar to what you said about your students. And let's take a look at the diagram that we shared. You can see over here that represents what's happening in workforce. And workforce systems should really be the economic engine for any community. And they're trying, you have organizations like a trade collective that's trying to navigate people. You have training providers, community colleges, or other local training providers and employers. They're all trying to work on this cross-community process. But because they don't have any digital or data infrastructure, it's incredibly difficult. It's very hard work. It's subscale work. They can't track their outcomes, so they can't, attract more funding. So it really is a labor of love for these organizations, but it really stays, at the, helping very small numbers of people in a community. And so that was the same problem we solved with our multi-sided technology at NowPow. So we decided to bring our team back together. So we brought them back for the reunion tour. And many of our team members at STEAMe are old NowPowers. And so together we're doing what's there on the right, which is a coordinated and connected ecosystem where our digital and data infrastructure is connecting all those players, the workforce intermediaries, the training providers, and the employers. And then we're navigating those learners through that journey, helping them with wraparound supports, connecting them to training programs, and then ultimately connecting them to those good jobs. And then we engage with those learners all along the way with our technology so we can understand if they're having any problems, if they need additional supports, and ultimately if they got the job and how they're persisting in the job. So we can answer that question that you talked about is what's happening after and how are they doing?
So young Samay, who says, I want to be a plumber, he's a sophomore, gets put into, tell me like what happens. And like he just got connected to Cahill for a summer job. He thinks he wants to be a plumber. He's a sophomore. He's going to be a junior next year. Tell me how this works, please.
Well, hopefully he started with the trade collective when he was
did.
a junior or a freshman, right?
He did.
Right. Okay.
It's where he did.
I want to capture them a lot earlier than
good.
There we go.
when
Nice.
they're,
Exactly.
And so I think that's the great thing is
Can I just say about Samay, what was interesting is, and we'll someday have him on here, but he needed to get permission from his family to say, I want to be a plumber.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right? It wasn't, he wanted to be a plumber. He thought he wanted to be a plumber, but his family's first gen, and the idea that he's going to go be a plumber and not go to college as a traditional Indian culture, and he wants to be a plumber, it required some conversations, some fireside chats by me and his dad, and they were green. They were good. But I've just, there's
but
a lot
let me tell you that what we need to do is actually start with the end in mind. And what we do is show parents and show learners our job portal. And we're creating a curated job portal just for Trade Collective. And in that job portal, we're showing that there are 1,300 jobs in the Evanston plus 10-mile radius that are just trade specific. And they don't require a 4-year degree. And they all pay over $75,000 a year on up.
begin with the end in mind.
Right. And so you're showing them that there are many jobs just in this local area for, a specific occupation that, Trade Collective can come and really paint the path to that job. And so getting them really, creating greater awareness of what that actually looks like for them. And then starting them at a young age, to really experience all the things that, that job might entail. And you're doing a great job in introducing them to job fairs and shadow experiences. But then as they, move through their experiences, the STEAMe technology, tracks all of those experiences, their activities, any needs they might have, any interests. So we're really, organizing that information all along the way so that by the time they're a sophomore or they're a junior, we know a lot more about that student and what their interests are. And then ultimately, as they graduate, we can either help them connect to a next step if they need additional training to get to the job that they want, or directly connect them to that, to the jobs that are right here locally in their community that they're well qualified for by then.
Is this a little bit more complicated than your healthcare, or was healthcare just, oh my gosh? Or is this simple, or is it more? Is it
You mean
just
the trades?
Yeah. Is this a complicated
well, you have
puzzle?
the union, layer that is a much more, complicated, thing. Healthcare has a lot of certifications and other kinds of qualifications you have to obtain there too and document. I'd say every different sector has their own unique thing. But Nichole,
I would say I think where the complexity comes in, and you spoke about this, no one owns no one owns the problem. Once you graduate from high school, right? You go to college, then the college owns it. But if not, as long as you're not in trouble, then you own the problem. And it's hard for you to find out what is the very approachable thing that I can do that also can, provide money. And I know that there's a job there. So I don't think it's hard once you have a system like STEAMe and you have the relationships in place where people talk to each other and there are jobs, what makes Evanston so plausible here. But I think someone has to say, I own it. And we own creating a system that anyone who's from here can connect in and find their place and find the next step, and someone will help them.
The thing that I just heard that I really appreciated was approachable, because that's the thing. There's when we interview graduates on this podcast, we hear, I was sitting on a couch, I was depressed. I didn't know what my next step was. And that's the approachable part. They don't know what they don't know. They don't know the access points. Right. So I really appreciated hearing that piece. And, in that case, who owns that problem? The kid on the couch, unfortunately, and not the community and the structure.
Well, and I think, we talk about workforce development systems having to be, in this day and age, agile, much more responsive to the employer needs out there in the marketplace, accessible. And we do a lot of things that really try to, make the technology very at the fingertips for our learners. So we're a completely text-based platform, so that any engagement we have with the learner is on their smartphone, which they all have, and then accountable. And I think that's where Nichole was talking about the community, and that's what Northwestern and the Ryan Family Foundation are trying to do with a centralized hiring hub, is try to really first draw attention to it so it's easily accessible to people, but then, have the community take some accountability for standing up this economic engine for everyone.
Yeah, I want to just a quick commercial. The stadium, when the stadium came to town, there was a $10 million gift given by the Ryan family for workforce development in Evanston. And part of that funding is coming to now STEAMe. Is that correct? Is funding this technology.
Yes.
Fair? True? Signed the deal, we're in. So Northwestern, you right?
Well,
here we are.
Just so the journey is
By
just
the time
beginning.
this airs.
But thank you to the Ryan family for funding this.
For that vision,
for that vision.
That's
and
an
Northwestern is taking, the job of being that backbone organization to sponsor it across the entire city of Evanston, which is an incredible opportunity to demonstrate how this work can be done across a whole geography. And so I think it's going to be really exciting.
And coupled with that, we talked about what makes Northwestern special in this. I talked about SESB, but it's also Dave Davis's office and the fact that, Northwestern has empowered him and created that office to figure out these connections. It wasn't just $10 million and go, it's like, let's really come up with an initiative.
Isn't it really Shayla that does everything over there? Huh? Shayla, big shout out to Shayla.
Let's shout out Shayla.
And John, thank you for all that you do for our community.
I would add that they were also really excited that there is such a big and important high school in ETHS to have that with a good body of learners that really are looking for a next step that's not potentially a 4-year degree was made this the perfect ecosystem to demonstrate this work on behalf of other communities out there in the United States.
So the reality why this is a perfect ecosystem, every kid who graduates from ETHS, we should know where they are. And I think we could make the goal to say everyone's going to have a place and it's going to be trained and figure out where their next step is we can do that. There's no reason we can't do that. And how do we hold the students accountable and hold organizations accountable to make sure that we're doing the training, we have the jobs, and we're looking internal with our own young people to be able to make this happen. And so the system makes it easy. You can always do that work, but it's hard. This makes it simple, and the dashboards and the data brings it to you in a way that you say, okay, am I accomplishing what I want to accomplish? No. Okay, what do I need to do? Who do I need to connect to make this happen?
As a school district, that's incredible data to have, because that's always been the piece, right? Going back to what I said earlier, I can't tell you how many times I've been asked at board meetings when we do the annual report, annual achievement report, right? We do all the grad data, do the college data, what about the other kids, Pete? Where are they? And I say every time I say the same thing. I was like, well, we don't know. We don't know. And then they say, well, can you create a system? I was like, I can't create a system that does that. But y'all did.
But maybe show that next slide that really talks about the all Evanston work too.
There we go.
I got a little excited Rachel, when I heard you talking about the 10-mile radius,
Yeah.
I got like, because I would say we think we're good people. We think we're smart.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like we're going to get a little bit smarter. We're going to get a lot smarter once this gets enabled.
Yes.
I can't wait.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I heard you starting to paint that picture, it gave me a lot of hope. For because we can say we know that there's 600 or there's 550 auto techs in a 10 that there's a need for 550 auto techs in a 10-mile radius, but to actually have an address and a person and start mapping that and direct it. It's really exciting. So
well, and I think that's what really made Northwestern super excited when they saw the kind of data that we collect and refresh on a daily basis. So you don't have to wait for state data to come, that's already stale by the time, it comes over your desk.
Really.
Right. It's postmortem. This is daily information on labor intelligence here. And I think being able to see that across the ecosystem and, curated down to the pipelines that are being, created here, I think gives that, information that the training providers need to understand what the employers need in this market. And then the training providers, whether it's an educational institution or a local training provider, can then reverse that to understand, how they can attract those learners into their programs.
I have a perfect example of this and why we need this. We just we were on an Ed Week webinar around workforce development. And the slide that caught my attention was that in high school, 8 out of 10 of the certificates that students earn in the work-based learning field, those certificates are worthless.
Yes, because they're not connected to the job market.
Right. 2 of them, 2 of 10. And we can do better.
Right. And so I'm so excited to talk to you about your CTE program and how we can make sure that the CTE program is tethered to the jobs that are available locally.
Well, I don't think the high school, I think as the high school starts to pivot towards this more balanced approach to addressing all of their students, as 65, as 202 starts to address this and look at this. I think we know what it takes to get to Brown University. We know with pretty good certainty what it takes to get to Harvard or to Stanford, correct?
Yep.
We know. I don't think we know what it takes to get to one of those, to become a B-level certification on automotive tech.
Yeah.
Perfect example.
What?
That example, when I was over here last year, was it last year?
Yeah.
I think it was last year. I came over, we're going to do an autos. We're going to get the auto guys together. Okay. Yeah. I come over, sitting there, and I find out that we're preparing the kids for the wrong certification. 10 minutes into the conversation, I'm like, oh, hell, this sucks. But what do you do with that information? You act on it. But if I don't go to that meeting, if I'm not sitting in there listening, I'll never know. It was the same thing when we were talking about the stadium bill. What's the key piece? Oh, you need a OSHA 10's nice, OSHA 20's better, or whatever. I was like, all right, great, good news.
So inside STEAMe, every initiative can specify the different trainings and certificates they need to, get to that job. And you can require them, you cannot require them, but it's very specific on how you traverse that journey and manage your learners through that. And I do want to talk about.
Us look so smart.
I am smiling from ear to ear.
But I do want to circle back to what you said about what it takes, and we don't really understand. And I do think that's the issue of stop-outs, and you talked about that a little bit, the persistence issue, and that's a real issue. And it doesn't mean people aren't motivated. It's life gets in the way oftentimes, and that's where we also are bringing our experience in NowPow and our wraparound supports that are needed, and built that ability to refer kids or people to those wraparound services that they need that help them stay the course, whether it's transportation or a laptop or childcare if you're an adult. We're able to connect them also within the technology to those community resources.
Yeah. And I think one thing that we're going to see as this builds out over time, this isn't use it for the first job and then move away. We want to be with you long term. And I don't think, college makes you think you do 4 years and then you're set, you never go back. I imagine we're going to, students are going to get a job. They're going to stay with us. They're going to get more training, more supports to get to the next job, keep going and keep going. So to me, the whole ecosystem, it isn't, let's keep developing one opportunity at a time to where we end up where we need to be, but you don't have to get there from the first training.
All right. Do we have any wordsmiths in the room?
I mean,
A little bit.
All right.
can do it.
I've heard the word. I've heard the word ecosystem like 7 or 8 times in this conversation. Chuck Lewis. We all. I don't know if you know Chuck yet, but you know him.
Exoskeleton.
He hates.
Exoskeleton.
He hates the word
I know he does.
ecosystem.
I know.
So, you know this?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay.
Well, let's come up with a different word. Let's try another word. Just to. I don't know.
Why use it? What word would you use? I use landscape, but that's
Okay.
an academic
whatever.
techie term. What would you use?
What do you got?
Well, yeah, it's, I don't have the same issue personally. I even have a slide that says ecosystem design, so clearly I don't have that
Chuck,
issue.
we're all working on it. We're trying. Anyway.
But there is a point. I mean, there is a thing about the intentionality, or lack of intentionality, between exoskeleton and ecosystem. But I think for the most part, ecosystem is the term that works.
Well, and what we're trying to show is that,
please.
it's a system of systems, right? And
yes.
so, what Northwestern is trying to do here is, stand up what we're calling the All Evanston Hiring Hub. I'm sure that name will change 5 times before it gets launched, but for now, it is the central organization that every talent pipeline initiative in the city will feed into. And they can do it. They can be on the technology fully like Trade Collective will, or they can, pick and choose the different products within our technology they want to engage with. But at the end of the day, once their learners are finished getting trained, they'll all connect into the hiring hub for personalized job placement and collecting that ecosystem analysis that creates the labor intelligence that I think we're all looking for. And then to Nichole's point, that hiring hub can stay with the learner after they get that job. They can always go and access the job portal. They can, be engaged with our AI engagements product so that they can be nudged to follow up on that next step in their career ladder. But the idea is that it's a central organization that is creating that ecosystem data and digital infrastructure.
Well, Chuck, I'm trying. I know. What do you think of Pete?
I'm just thinking what an amazing tool this is.
Yeah.
I mean, how fortunate we are as a district to be able to tap into this, but also like this is a game changer for students. I mean, I've sat in meetings, and you have too, Patrick, for a long time, where we talk about the economic viability of living in Evanston. How could you get a wage that's going to allow you to live in Evanston? And what I'm seeing here is a system that can intentionally scaffold that, right? Can shepherd you along the way to that reality. And for a long that only existed like as a talking point. That never really existed for real. Am I right? Am I right, Nichole?
You're right.
So I just see this as an amazing opportunity for our town.
And so it can be the economic engine. That's what workforce development should be in a community, is that economic engine and the economic flywheel that, really creates the vitality and the resilience that communities need now, because the world is changing fast. And that's why this is so important.
I think we're going to have a lot of 40 and 50-year-olds who are going to be tapping into this.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
Because the world's shifting so fast.
Real fast.
And we're going to have parents of those kids that they're thinking,
and that's
they're going to
why
both be in here looking for
a
stuff.
connected and collaborative community is so important. AI displacement, whether or not that's a real thing or not, change is going to happen. Even if you didn't have AI, the speed of change is escalating. And so there needs to be a tight relationship between employer demand and the learning and education environment.
Rachel, I'm going to say this, and this may be a little uncomfortable, but the reason I kind of trust this is because of your family's background. From a skilled trade standpoint, I don't care about data in general. I do. I care about it. But to know that you are thinking about this the way that your father thought about this is what we need, that kind of making sure that we get kids to those finish lines. And that helps me a lot in thinking about software and data and information systems like that. So I'm just going to say your team has been incredible. You and your team have really been it's been long and but it's been really, all of our engagements with you have been really good. So thank you for you and your whole team.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
No, I think, we know very, very intently how you have to approach this with an incredibly high standard. You're dealing with youth data in some cases, right? It's a privilege and a responsibility to manage that in a way that, meets all of those privacy and security standards. But it's also important to make sure that, we're bringing that efficiency and effectiveness to this system, this broken system, and, tapping into the real opportunity that we see. But I'm leveraging all the things I learned from, my dad along the way and his deep love of manufacturing and truly how to create vitality in a community. And, I think that's my passion at the end of the day.
Can I know we're talking a lot about skills trades, right? But I'm curious, I'm also looking to Pete and understanding that in education, we also have that pathway too. So how, have you thought about, or could you think about us using this in the education to train our folks here to, to work in ETHS D65 along the way, not just as teachers, but as part of our learning ecosystem?
No, I mean, I think that would be amazing, actually. I mean, we've been talking about, there's a whole grow your own movement where you grow your own teachers. We've been looking at dual credit opportunities for our juniors and seniors in our education. We have education courses at the high school. It's the one dual credit class I think virtually everybody at the high school could teach because you need a basterd's degree in it. And hey, we got a lot of master's degrees in education. But the point is, like, we could start that, but then it's like this handoff to where does it go, right? And we do know that is a direct, that's a way of upward mobility, right? Education is often a field that has historically shown the greatest gains for families generationally. That's because it's an entry field, right? We know that engineers' kids tend to be engineers, lawyers' kids tend to be lawyers, that kind of thing. Education folks tend to be oftentimes like first generation go into education, and the earnings that they accrue are really great. So I see real viability there. I see that, Oakton obviously could tap into this. That's our partner initially, but you could have other local universities as well. Northwestern.
We power the Education Workforce Center, actually, that stood up by Truman College at City Colleges of Chicago. And they're very intent on creating early childhood professional talent pipelines, taking members to and through to those jobs, but then exposing them to the pathway that can take them to other higher educational jobs. So I think education is a great talent pipeline to focus on. Obviously, healthcare, I know that's one that is a big focus and a big need out there. And, I'm sure many others in this community will tap them.
You know what I appreciate, Rachel, is this to and through, this reconceptualization for me for to and through. To and through to me, because like I said earlier, the college thing was like to and through college. That's a real thing. To and through to a real career.
So let me give you the paradigm in workforce. It's train and pray used to be the motto, right? That you train them up and pray that there's some job there at the end of the day. Yeah. And we're trying to, transform it to train, place, and prosper. That really, that's the paradigm that we should be thinking about. And this economic engine is for everyone, right? And not just, the college educated, that it's making sure that everyone is included in that paradigm.
Begin with the end in mind. I love that. Because Mike Baskin in my old company used to say that, and it kind of helps a lot. In what are we going to get? What do we want to do today to meet that goal? I don't know. Pete, what are you thinking about?
I like to go back to something where we started, where we talked about approachable, and we talked about parents. Because a lot of times on this podcast, we talk about, we talk about the skill trades, we talk about, jobs or careers that don't require a 4-year degree. We run into this belief in Evanston around the 4-year degree. Yeah. And I've said it a bunch of times, I'll say it again. We're one of the most educated communities in the United States in terms of masters per capita. And that trickles down, right, to this culture of college for all on steroids. Now, there are a lot of kids who go off to college who don't want to go. and who
Well, and the persistent rate is
it reflects that,
indicative of
right?
it, yeah.
Or as Chuck Happ used to say up in New Trier, the 5-year party. Then they go to the 5-year party and then they end up on your couch.
Yeah.
I guess my point is like what I really liked about what I heard earlier was this is a way to expose parents to actually a very clear to and through model. And there's security in that for a parent.
Yes.
It's not train and hope or train and pray,
Right.
which I think parents that's probably a big worry for them. This is actually a curated experience for your child
Yes.
as they enter the workforce, which I
Yes.
love that.
And oftentimes that journey can have lifelong learning in it. So they may choose then after that first job experience that they get, to then enroll in the community college to take their next, to earn more, credits to the next step on their journey. So I think that idea of lifelong learning is also a new paradigm that we want to.
Can I ask a question about that? Mentorship and connections to people and actual life skill on the job stuff is a big part of particularly in the skilled trades. The reason that Samay is over at Cahill is because he met Charlie Schaefer at Cahill and was able to like bend the idea, took a tour, and then it's where it started.
Right.
Is that going to be part of our system here? I don't always listen very well in all of our meetings.
Really, Patrick? You do more talking than listening sometimes.
Hey.
But I'll just start, and then Nichole can pick up. But coaches and navigators are a big part of this model, right? And we've seen it in the most successful workforce intermediary organizations that, whether it is a volunteer, a mentor, a formal coach or navigator, that role is very important to creating the persistence that we want. And so our technology actually has a formal role for that individual and facilitates the work for that individual so that they can engage with the learner at scale. Though right now it's a limiter, and so cracking the code on how to spread that wealth around across the set of learners that are interested in that person's expertise and experience.
So I would say the technology makes it sort of effortless to engage in that, but it's really up to the ecosystem to do it, right? And so I know the Trade Collective, to inspire. And I know that that's a core of what's here. Yeah. And that's why, it's really exciting for us to bring the fullness of STEAMe here, because we know that it's not the social supports, the wraparound supports, the relationships, who's just going to be on the system. It's going to bring all of that, and it's going to allow us to understand, how did this person get from here to there? Oh, we can see the supports. We can see who was loving in on them. And we can also look at those supports across.
Loving in on them. I like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Even the relationship. I mean, in the high school, you already have Youth Job Center. Oakton's there. So those resources are there, and we're going to understand how young people are going to use them differently. Yeah. That can help us understand what those supports are.
Give me, in short, what does success look like in Evanston? And then what does success look like for STEAMe in 5 years, let's say? What does STEAMe look like? And I do want to get back to who named STEAMe. But
well, you say Evanston.
Yeah. So for me, the success in Evanston is in 3 to 4 years. Every kid, you're going to say there's intentionality of where I am. So if I'm not going to college, I've done the work in 9th and 10th grade. I've been up in the hub. I've done the surveys. I've been here. I've tried out all the different trades and say maybe trades aren't for me. Healthcare is. So everyone has been intentional about sampling, and so they can make a informed decision. And so everyone has a choice. That also all of our workforce partners, everyone's represented in the system. You don't want to be that one org that's not here, right? It's going to be the place to be and say, why aren't your jobs here? Because you're going to want to actually come here. And our young people are going to be trained. And it's going to be more and more people are going to want to come here. And I would say the biggest success is that Northwestern is using this because they're using it because this is where the best employees are. Not because they have to use it, but because it is where we need to be to get access to the young people who are trained. And no, they're not just trained, but they're aware of what it is that they're going to do. Because you can train people and place them into a job that they don't want to be. I think the importance in how you've done the Trade Collective is you're making them aware and allowing them to have the choice.
Yeah, we talk about credibility, that, not only is it connected and coordinated, the ecosystem that we're standing up, it's credible, right? So employers want to engage, and they know the best place to find that talent is through these talent pipelines that are being connected in the ecosystem. And I would just say for STEAMe, it's really what Nichole said, on steroids, right? We have the intention here, for example, to have this be a demonstration use case. And then other cities across the country can look to what's happening here, what's the relationship between ETHS and the community initiatives, the relationship with the employers, with each other, and, say that we need that in our community. And when you start to see that, that's what we did at NowPow. Ultimately, we were in 13 states and, had made 11 million social care referrals. That's the scale we want to get to so we can transform workforce development.
I have a thought that you're going to be the really smart. Because you're going to be doing the data, you're going to be learning about the gaps.
Right.
You're going to see who's not sure. Why are we doing it this way?
Yeah.
How are you going to inform the network or the marketplace or the connection to all of this? How do you inform that? Did you do that in healthcare?
Yes.
So
in the
how do you help
pandemic-
people?
So in the pandemic, we had all this rich data on what actually was open and operating in a community, the social services. And so we started creating maps on our website that showed everything that was open and operating in New York City. You could dial into your neighborhood and we could show you where there were food pantries within, 2 miles of your house. And, that kind of, rich information allows you to make real-time impact. So you don't have to wait 5 years, for a study to come out, that you actually are using it dynamically in real time. And that's an aspiration we very much can see, within our line of sight.
Is there anything that we got to wrap up here, but is there anything that you kind of wish we should tell people about what we're going to do here in town? Anybody you want to thank? Anything we're missing? Go to Free Flow.
Go to Free Flow. Is that a thing?
What? Tell me. Tell us about Free Flow. We got a little.
Since we have barbecue sauce.
We got barbecue sauce. What's your connection to Free Flow?
So actually, that's
Go
really
ahead.
interesting.
Yeah.
My wife and I have a restaurant. Really, it's my wife's restaurant. When we moved into Evanston 7-8 years ago, there were very few places. We live in the 5th Ward, which is where the high school's right across the street. And it's the under-resourced. Every community has places under-resourced. And there was no place to meet each other, meet anyone. And so in some sense, in order to sort of be able to connect, you have to have connectors. And you think of STEAMe as also being a connector. So we opened up our version of Cheers right across the street from the new elementary school that's coming back in. And that has become a hub. Food is great. Come watch comedy, come listen to jazz, but really just come and connect.
Right.
And you need places. I will say this, this is what Trade Collective is. It is a hub and people just come to be here because if you're in the place, you're going to meet people and have stumble upon the conversations that need to happen. Yeah. So we're trying to be a food place where people can stumble upon good folks,
it's going well.
Good people.
I'm glad it's going well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that shout out.
Rachel, what are you thinking as we close out here, Rachel?
Well, I'm just grateful to be in community with you guys. I think you're the ones who make, the ideas into reality. And, I like to think about how I can power up those ideas and those visions. And, I need those partners along the way to make that happen. And I see that so much in all of you. And so, yeah, excited to see where this all goes and make sure we fill all those trade jobs out there, right?
I don't think anyone really knows if we were optimized, if we did this really well.
Right.
I think we're going to shock the hell out of the industry.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to wake up a whole world of kids that could to potential. I think if we did this really well, it would be really fun.
Yeah, because I will say about ETHS and having worked with many school districts and the kids come, they're prepared, right? So the reality of them graduating 10th, 11th grade, they actually are prepared to step into these opportunities and to take advantage of them. So in that sense, technology, relationships, education, social supports are all there. And that now we just have to all get out of our way and lean into what it is we said we're going to do and do it together, and we'll look up, and then we'll have new pathways, new opportunities, and hopefully the opportunity for young people to stay, because now you have to leave and you come back when you have kids.
Yeah.
Right.
That's exactly
we need
the
to
pattern.
be able to allow folks to stay.
Right.
Well, we have a closing gift here.
There you go.
You
get the sauce.
Yeah. So this is in honor of our lost good old friend Hecky.
It's the sauce.
Yes, I've
It's the
had
sauce.
Heckey's.
Okay.
Heckey's used to be an institution around
It
here.
is an institution. And
Okay,
so,
I've been to Heckey's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Hecky is a good friend of mine and our families, and they closed down their foundation and have helped their foundation that they had, which was about workforce development. They just sent us another check. They've been very generous to us, and but Hecky was a thing in this town. He was
Okay.
he was royalty, and so we give all of our guests Hecky sauce. So,
Okay.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
Here's to Hecky.
Can we get the ribs with it?
Yeah.
We can.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Get the
Yeah.
smoker going.
Well, thank you guys. Really
Thank you.
appreciate
Thank
the
you
for
opportunity
coming
to
out.
talk.
Thank
So we have
Okay.
to do this a year to see.
Oh, yeah.
We'll come back
We
and
have to
we'll do
hold
a
ourselves accountable.
Yeah.
You'll
Right?
be our first return guest. I love that.
Yes.
We'll have another word other than ecosystem, maybe.
Oh.
I know, but it's just been on my mind.
Okay. Well, you
He
come up with
challenged
it,
us.
Patrick. You come up
I kind of liked it, but whatever. But thank you for being here.
All right,
Thanks
thanks
for
so
all that you're
much.
doing.
Great.
All right.
All right.
Take
you.
care.